The conflict between Israel and Palestine has raged on for generations. The fighting we see in 2021 is born of more than 100 years of struggle. After the Ottoman Empire was defeated in World War I, Britain took control of the area known as Palestine, a strip of land between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. Back then, it was occupied by an Arab majority and Jewish minority. The international community tasked Britain with setting up a national home for Jewish people in Palestine, but both the Jews and Arabs claim that historical Palestine was their land, which is what leads to our issue. From the 1920s to 1940s, many Jewish people fled to Palestine, escaping persecutions and the Holocaust, but that only initiated the Arab population living there. Violence between the Jews, the British, and the Arabs escalated. In 1947, the United Nations voted for Palestine to be split into separate Jewish and Arab states. Jewish leaders embraced the plan, while Arabs did not. In 1948, the British realized the problem couldn't be solved by them, and they left. Jewish leaders created the State of Israel with the backing of U.S. President Harry S. Truman. This did not go well with Palestinians, and war broke out, the beginning of the Palestinian and Israel conflict. For Jews, it was their ancestral home, but Palestinian Arabs also claimed the land and opposed the move. Jewish leaders proclaimed the establishment of the State of Israel. Many Palestinians protested, and the result was a battle. Invasion by troops from neighboring Arab countries. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their homes. Israel controlled most of the territory. Jordan took control of the West Bank, while Egypt took control of Gaza. Israeli forces in the west and Jordanian forces in the east fought for control of Jerusalem. There were more conflicts and fightings in the decades that followed because there was never a peace deal. Each side blamed the other. When did such a conflict explode into the battle we know today? During the Six-Day War between Israel and other neighboring Arab countries, Israel had seized control over all of Palestine. Israel would now govern the Palestinians. Under Israel's rule, both sides fought endlessly, one more than the other. The Palestinians fought and are still fighting to this day for an independent Palestinian state. Several 100,000 settlers have moved into Palestine despite the international community finding this illegal. And as more and more Israelis were moving into Palestine, the growing amount of Israeli settlements increased. The Palestinians would be forced out of their homes.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? What are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
It's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, يا عمي.
أنا دايما بخاف لما يطلعوا الجيران. أنا شفت قضية دار الغاوي لما حملوا أولادهم، فجروا الأبواب وحملوا أولادهم زتوهم الساعة 3 الصبح برا. النسوان بالشرطات، النسوان بقمصان النوم، الأولاد كمان. فأنا خايفة على بيتي، خايفة على أولادي، خايفة على كل شيء.
The Israeli military and police use unnecessary and excessive force during law enforcement activities, including search, arrest operations, and policing demonstrations. Many were unlawfully killed by live ammunition or other excessive force when posing no imminent threat to life. Reported methods included speeding, slapping, painfully shackling, sleep deprivation, use of stress positions, and threats of violence against family members. Prolonged solitary confinement, sometimes lasting months, was commonly used as a punishment. Violence against women persisted in Israel, especially against Palestinian citizens. And after the start of the holy month of Ramadan in April 2021, things have gotten worse. Palestinians are currently suffering from hunger, poverty, conflict, and a global pandemic. But where is the world today?
I reaffirm my strong support for Israel's right to defend itself.
The United States recognizes Israel's absolute right to defend itself.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
There is a huge imbalance of power as well as protection between the two nations. The citizens of Gaza do not have anything to protect themselves against, in contrast with the protection provided to Israeli citizens. The many significant disadvantages the Palestinians have in this conflict is the reason why the line, Israel has a right to defend themselves, lacks in so many ways. It is not that Israel does not have a right to defend itself, but rather it's the fact that the line cannot be used to justify the horrendous acts, violations of human rights, and war crimes that Israelis have committed. Thousands of innocent Palestinians have been bombed, they are kicked out of their homes, and killed under the Israelis' act of defense. They claim that as a result of Palestinian riots and protests, that they will have a right to arm themselves. However, this does not make sense whatsoever. The majority of people from Gaza are not even from Hamas, an extremist Palestinian group whose goal is to liberate Palestine from Israeli occupation. The group was formed as a result of a suffocating blockade and the Israelis' active restrictions against the Palestinians for 14 years. Israel and Egypt maintain tight control over Gaza's border in order to protect arms from reaching Hamas.
Whom the Israelis are attacking are innocent civilians and children who do not show signs of offense. They are bombing residents' homes under the speculations of military targets being present inside the building. Recently, Israel had bombed a media building present in Gaza. Israel said that the building contained military assets belonging to the intelligence offices of the Hamas terror organization. This was clearly a deliberate act to prevent journalists to report the news occurring in Gaza. They'd also warned the people to evacuate from beforehand, giving them only 1 hour to gather important equipment. Israel claims it is only acting in self-defense against Palestinian aggression. At least 213 people, including 61 children, have been killed in air raids on the Gaza Strip since May 10th. Israelis would make claim and tell blatant lies to make it seem that their actions are justifiable and that Palestinians deserved it. This is far from a political conflict. As Muslims, we need to spread awareness of this matter. In this world, we are representations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever justice occurs, whether it be in Kashmir, Yemen, Black Lives Matter, anti-Semitism, whatever it may be, injustice is injustice, and as Muslims we have a duty to stand up against it. Our fellow Muslim brothers and sisters are suffering and are depending on us to help them. Millions of Palestinians and innocent children are dying day by day, yet where is the world today? This disgusting revolting act that the Israelis have committed to the Palestinians cannot be unseen. We must put every amount of effort into stopping the war once and for all and bringing Palestinians the justice they had lost. You do not need to be a Muslim to support the Palestinians. You only need to be a human.